It'll be you and me and Mother Teresa. That's why her picture is up there. I'll start out with Mother Teresa and talk about her, but at some point I'm going to tell a few things about me, and at some point I'm going to be talking about you. Hopefully during this night something will happen for you and you'll find yourself closer to what your charity may be. The other night I was talking with Kirsty. Usually we talk about her birthday because that's about all I know about Kirsty. We met on your birthday. So we had birthday and birthday week and birthday month. And finally on Friday I said, we should talk about something else other than your birthday. But that's all I knew about Kirsty. And so I said, what would you like people most to know about you? And she said, I don't know. What do you want people to know about you? And I said, well, I got to hang out with a saint. That's what I'd like to talk about tonight, is the fact that I feel gifted, I feel lucky. I got to hang out with a saint for a while. And I'll try to pass some of that on tonight. When Cameron asked me to do this talk on charity and being a volunteer, I thought, I wish Mother Teresa could give this talk rather than John, because I'm really probably the most least likely people, one of the most least likely people to give this message. I'll talk a little bit more about me, but I wish I could have Mother Teresa communicate to you. I heard her speak a number of times. I was around her for years. I still am an MC. When I say MC, it's Missionaries of Charity, but you hardly ever say it. I just say MC. And I had the ability to be around her, and she was such a wonderful communicator. It was always authentic, spontaneous, genuine, moving. There's a number of films that were made about Mother Teresa. I don't know if you've seen any of them or not. Very moving. And I wish I could share a film with you tonight. And I'm going to try to be as personal as I can tonight. I'm going to try to bring an experience that would in some way approximate what it was like to be around Mother Teresa. It was delicious. There was no other way to put it. She was the real thing. She was online. She was loving. Everything you would ever hope a person could be, but kind of stuck with me to transmit that message tonight. Again, I'm going to try to make this as personal as I can tonight. This is not going to be a lecture. Gina said to me, you know, we all go to a lot of lectures, so don't do a lecture. And I hear you. I go to lectures too. Even though I'm older than dirt, I still go to classes too. And you know, the main thing is you want to get out of those classes. So I won't lecture it at you. I'll try to make this as interesting as possible and try to be as authentic as possible. Begin from the personal point of view, I'm going to include a couple of you in my talk tonight. Like I included Kirsty. I also want to include someone that I predict in 2040 you're going to start to get interested in alumni magazines. And those will come in the mail, and you're going to be looking at this person's picture in your alumni magazine. This is Katie. A lot of you know Katie. She makes films. 2 of her films are going to roll out on April 17th. I wish I could present a film as well as Katie to communicate what is so important to communicate about the subject of charity and volunteerism. Thanks, Katie. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I met Mother Teresa and just some of the stories. I'll try to be as heartfelt and genuine as I can because that's how she was. There's a long and winding road how I got to meet her. I was in an NBA Coliseum. A friend said, hey, Mother Teresa's going to appear. You want to go? So I figure, well, she's 84 years old, she's little, it's not going to take very long. Well, an hour and a half later, she's still rolling. I mean, she is quite a speaker. 5 languages, she's out in the mosh, she's touching people, she's extremely genuine. Everybody is really moved by it, including me. I'm a pretty impressionable person. And so when things started to end, I didn't want it to end, so I followed her. I followed the entourage and followed back to the house where she was. I had an opportunity to see that she was just standing not protected. She didn't have an entourage around her at the time, so naturally I came up to her and I said, I want to volunteer. She was a very little woman with great big hands. I've often noticed in people in life, people who are very capable have big hands, very capable hands. One time I got a chance to high-five Michael Jordan at halftime. He it's huge hands. And it looked okay on Michael Jordan, but Mother Teresa was like 5 feet and, you know, big hands.
It was a very deep voice. A little woman, she had a deep voice. She said, cut the grass.
So I didn't have a lawnmower, but I soon got a lawnmower, and I cut the grass. So I went back and I said, I still want to volunteer.
She said, paint the walls.
So, as some of you in your service trip, you know about painting walls, so I painted the walls. And I came back to her again, she was still there, and I said, I still want to volunteer. She said, come to pray. And so 5 o'clock the next morning was prayer time. Naturally, I was late. I don't get up at 5 in the morning very well. And as most of us Roman Catholics, we sit in the back pews. And, the back pews get taken up first, and the front pews are open. And so when I got there after 5 o'clock, it so happened that I got put up front. Mother Teresa was. And I got to be close to her while she prayed. And you wanted to see that experience. You wanted to see Mother Teresa in prayer early in the morning. Naturally, people around Jesus said, teach us to pray. And so we have the Lord's Prayer as a result. But I tell you, when I was that close to her as she was praying, it was Eucharistic adoration time, she didn't have a prayer book. There wasn't any words. She was just riveted on that host. She was just stared at that host the whole time I saw her. He never moved. I thought, I was kind of new to the whole process. What kind of experience is she having? But I didn't doubt for a minute she was having an authentic experience of that host. So that was my first experience of Mother Teresa. I came back the next day for prayer, and she wasn't there. And so I asked some of the sisters, where is she? She said, well, she's been here 3 days. She doesn't stay here very long. And she went back to Rome, and because Rome's one of the home offices, Calcutta, Rome, and San Francisco. They said if you want to connect with her, she's in Rome or San Francisco. She has 5 houses in San Francisco. So I had to make arrangements. I went to Rome. Didn't get a chance to be around her very much because in Rome, it's the home office for Roman Catholics. That's the home office and lots of hierarchy in Rome. But it happened one day when I stayed right across the AMC house, and there were a lot of bands, and there was going to be like a hospitality night or hospitality experience. And so, because it was Rome, there was a lot of people with big hats on. I don't know what else to say. Lots of cardinals, lots of people with big hats on, lots of bands. And if you've ever been to Rome, it's hot. It's an extraordinarily hot place. It's hotter than Bowling Green in the summer. It's muggy, it's just hot. So, scheduled time, Mother Teresa comes down the steps, and we're all standing back, and the big hats are in front of us. And at some point, Mother Teresa kind of disappears. You can't see her anymore because she's so short that it's not surprising. But like 15 minutes later, nobody's moving. Half an hour later, what's going on? And come to find out what's happened is Mother Teresa sort of dove down in the bushes after this man who was down in the bushes. And I have cargo pants and a t-shirt on, but these guys with the big hats are sweating in the sun. And nobody's offended. That's the thing I was really amazed at. The band kept playing and everybody kept waiting. But there was something so authentic about Mother Teresa that nobody got offended that she did the thing that she thought was important, which was to tend to this homeless man. About 40 minutes she was down there in the bush with this man. And you would think, well, how rude. It was hospitality, and she was the one who was expected to be present. But I think she had a priority straight. She knew it was important. This man down in the bushes was the most important at that moment. Not us, not the men with the hats. That man who needed to be loved, who needed to be cared for, came first. Other authentic stories about Mother Teresa. She was a simple woman. We think of her as Mother Teresa, but really she was Agnes Oxahisu from Albania. Small person, not very well known. You wouldn't think, well, she's going to be a saint someday. people who knew her early in life didn't portray that. This wasn't someone who was bound for sainthood. There's been, Nobel Peace Prizes, so many honors, so many things have happened. Big movement, tens of thousands of people. But one of the things that they have to do, like any organization, is number the people. And so the sister who talked to us one time was number 17. She had a name also. She was Sister Beneath, an Indian woman. But she told this story, and I was not there, so I can't tell you this is my experience. This is one of those things about Mother Teresa and her nature. They were in Calcutta and they were scooping up bodies. If you've ever been in Calcutta, it's hot. There's a lot of smells for us Americans. It's overwhelming sometimes, and it's not unusual to see bodies laying in the street, laying in the gutter. And number 17, sister, said that one day they were out scooping up bodies, and this one man they encountered had maggots in his ears, coming out his nose, which you can imagine what kind of shape he was in. And then as she got closer to him, he had maggots in his eyes even. So he was pretty close to death. And so she was tending to him. And she said, I did the best I could. I was doing the best I could with this very unfortunate human being. But it was hard. I was getting nauseous, and I didn't know what to do next. And I felt this hand rubbing my back. And she said, I turned to this Mother Teresa, and she would say, you can do it. See Jesus in him. If you see Jesus in him, you will love him. And she said, I did the best I could, but I just hurled. At some point, it was overwhelmingly, and she passed out, vomited, and kind of fell out. And the next thing she knows, she looks over, and Mother Teresa has this guy in her arms. There's no media around. This isn't a story that was on, 11 o'clock news. Mother Teresa has this man in her arms. And number 17 says she was seeing Jesus in that. There was no doubt the way she was communicating to this unfortunate man that she was holding. And at some point she said this man rose up from his stomach, his chest, his head rose up, and he just brightened up. He said something very joyful and fell back and was dead at that point. And so then Mother Teresa laid him down on the ground there, and she turned to number 17, and number 17 said, oh, I'm in for it now. Mother Teresa's going to get into me now. And she said, all Mother did was turn towards her and just said, Jesus. She saw Jesus in that man. It would be very difficult for any of us to see Jesus in every person we meet, especially someone who's so unfortunate. Those are a few of the stories that I heard about or encountered about Mother Teresa. Next, I'm going to share a story that some of you have heard, some of the new ones have heard this on the first day. It's such a good story, and it happened to me. And I can tell you about the story and how it happened. I volunteered at Gift of Love in San Francisco a number of times for a number of years. And as Sister John Marie, who's the RN there, says, Mary keeps this house open. San Francisco is a very same-gender sexuality city. The city would like to close down all Mother Teresa houses and just do it from a social perspective. And so we often said rosaries. We said rosaries often and in many different ways. If you remember the story about Webb was the most difficult person I've ever worked with in my life. I worked in prisons and jails. There's a lot of people who kill people. People who kill people are a different sort of person. There's one of the guys who I worked with said, once someone blows their last breath in your face, life looks different. And people who've taken other people's lives are just intense sorts of people. They just don't see life like you and I do. And so one of these people is a guy named Webb. And Webb, by the time I got there, didn't have his fingers or toes. That HIV virus, AIDS had taken so much from him. I assume he was a street dealer. I assume there's a lot of stuff he did on the streets of San Francisco. He would regularly curse out the sisters. He would regularly throw stuff around the room, pull the tubes out of his nose. I cannot tell you how objectionable a human being this was. This was by far the most difficult person I ever worked with. But that was Webb. And what the sister says is just pray for him. dedicated groceries to him, and prayed for him, tried to be as good to him as possible. But he didn't